Hello, and welcome to Through the Veil, where we get together to share stories and remember the wisdom that belongs to us. I'm Melissa Camrudin. This week, I am speaking with Carmel, and she's sharing her 2 birth stories. You can listen into this one to hear the value of having a wise woman at your birth, and to hear a story of a partner who really gets it. Enjoy. Hi, Carmel.
Hello, Melissa. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad we got to connect. It was like a little hectic with all the kids.
But now one of them is sleeping and one is nursing, and
yeah,
right?
We did it.
We did it. We're here.
Here we are. Yes. Tell us about, let's start with your mothering journey. Where did it begin for you?
So I was 27 years old. I'm an actress, and I was like being an actress in New York, and just not. I think I want to start with to say that up until that point, I had never thought about having babies. I did not want to have babies. I just didn't think about it. Right. So it was something that now I'm realizing as I'm older how important it is to have that around us growing up in preparation, I think. Right. So yeah, at the time I hadn't thought about babies. I had nannied and stuff, but like I hadn't been around birth. I hadn't been around brand new babies. I hadn't thought, do I want to have a baby? It wasn't a discussion with my, it was just not a thing. So all of a sudden I'm pregnant. I'm kind of just like not prepared for it in any way, not in a stable relationship, not financially stable, not having right. Everything was just very chaotic. I wasn't that young. I was 27, but that's where I was at. Right. So I'm pregnant, and side note, I'm not in a very stable, solid relationship, so I'm terrified. And actually, I should add that I was pregnant 3 months prior to that. And really hard to admit that I did get rid of that baby pregnancy. And the reason I did that is because I was in this unstable relationship. And then 3 months later, funny enough, having one foot out the door to exit that relationship, I became pregnant again. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't. And I had this sort of visceral feeling like it was the same baby, right? So whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I felt like, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. But I was terrified. And the interesting thing was that I very intuitively, having not known anything about birthing or babies, that I needed a woman there with me. And so I picked my very good friend Selena, and I appointed her my unprofessional, she's not a professional doula, but I was like, you're going to be there with me. And she was like, absolutely. And so everything was super chill with my pregnancy. I was healthy and everything was fine. And then 37 weeks in, I'm going in for a routine ultrasound. I'm in New York, by the way. Did I mention that part?
Yeah.
At the time, I'm in New York. So I don't know. I just think the medical industry there is probably a little bit different than in Canada. And so I'm in the ultrasound, and all of a sudden the doctor comes in, and I'm by myself, and he says, all right, so your amniotic fluid's a little low. We're just going to go ahead and send you up to the 13th floor, and we're going to go ahead and introduce you. And I'm like, so what? Sorry, what? Like, we're going to do what on the 13th floor? Like, what are you talking about? Can I ask some questions? I asked him if I could ask some questions. And he said, kind of sternly pulled back, and he said, what kind of questions do you want to ask? And I'm like, gulp, like, never mind. Right. So I pick up the phone and I call my midwife, which I did have a midwife, but she didn't feel like a midwife. I just felt like it was all very routine, like checking this, checking that. I didn't question like what tests or things I did or didn't do at the time. I just did whatever they told me to do. Like all the tests they do on you.
Blood tests, ultrasound.
Yeah, all that. I just did whatever they said. I didn't really think too much into it. And I said, hey, they're telling me they need to induce me. Like there's nothing wrong with me. I don't feel like I really didn't think I needed to be induced. And she said her hands were kind of tied. She was like, yeah, I can't remember exactly what she said, but I could tell that she was not going to help me out. She was like, you got to do what he says. And so I called my friend Selena. And funny enough, I called Selena first, not the father. And honestly was kind of scared of having him in the room because I didn't want, I just knew that he wasn't going to be helpful. So we go into, it takes quite a while, and we're sitting getting registered, and I see the midwife coming in through the room, and I stop her and I say, hey, and by the way, I'll backtrack again. I very much wanted to have a natural birth. So again, even though I hadn't been around birth or thought about birth or had been exposed to it in any way, I knew very intuitively that I wanted a natural birth. And so when I was being induced, I had watched all those movies like The Business of Being Born by, what's her name?
Is it Ricky Lake?
Yeah, Ricky Lake.
Yeah.
I'd watched all that. So I knew that there was some stuff to avoid and I should be careful. And so when they said I was being induced, I got very scared. And anyways, I grabbed the midwife then and I said, hey, what are the chances of me being induced and having a natural birth? And I recall she snorted. She was like, 5%? Like she just like completely, it was awful. And I remember though, I turned to Selena and I looked at her very seriously and I was like, I'm going to be in that 5%. And I was like, oh, like I cannot go down that snowball rabbit hole thing of induction. So we go in to the room and finally there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens before. We like go outside and she's like, oh, and the reason, by the way, I picked Selena is because A, she's an incredible woman who I knew was just going to be there. She's just one of those women that's, and then also her mother had 5 children and had like, she lives in Australia, but had like a slew of midwife friends. And like, she was just around it a lot, right? She grew up with it. So she had some intuitive or just handed down knowledge. Selena did. And so the midwives come in and they're like, all right, well, we're going to give you two induction methods to pick from and you let us know what you want to do. Like, none of this had been discussed in preparation, like in the months before. Like, I'm just like, what? I have to pick now? Like, what? And so Selena, in that moment, she looks at me and she says, start meditating. I'll take care of it. Now, at the time, I don't even have a meditation practice. Like, I was like, but because I felt so taken care of by Selena and how she just was going to handle all the others, she's like, I'm going to call my mom. I'm going to research it and I'll let you know. And I trusted her. So I just went into this like space. And like I said, I didn't have a meditation practice at the time. But it was like immediate. I just like went inwards. I sort of blocked the dad out. I know it's not a fun thing to say, but that's what I had to do.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah. And I went into this zone and Selena did some research anyways. We ended up picking Pitocin. I can't remember what the other option was. I didn't question it too much because I trusted Selena. It was just kind of like, I don't know, right? Like, what do you do? So I just picked the one. I think they used a Foley balloon as well. Anyways, but those details don't matter that much because the story ended really beautifully because the induction worked immediately. I was in labor within, I can't remember exactly the timeline, but like very fast. And it was like it, like they say it is, fast and furious. The contractions came on really strong and it was just full steam ahead. And even though it was really intense, to be honest, I was in that meditative state and I was like very silent, strangely, like in most of it, just like leaning back up. Because I was attached to all those things, I couldn't walk around and do whatever I wanted. So I was just laying back in this hospital bed in this very, very quiet, like cave-like state. And every time I'd have a contraction, I would sort of open my eyes, look at Selena. She would massage my feet. We would have this silent thing. And then I would go back and then I'd come out. It was like this. That's how I remember it. And this went on for her. Oh, they also did like, what do they, when they stick the water up your butt? I don't know. What do they call that? An enema?
Yeah,
which apparently
enema.
Yeah, which apparently they don't do anymore.
No, I actually don't know anybody like currently having babies who's like maybe like 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, so they told me it was going to help. They didn't say it had anything to do with. They just said it was going to help like relax things. I was like, whatever. Didn't love it. But anyways, these things were like, yeah. So So this goes on for a while, and it's labor, but it wasn't like, I don't remember it being, so bad. And then all of a sudden near the end, well, not, I don't know what's the end, right? But all of a sudden I get like pushed forward by this like incredible force onto all fours with this wild contraction. And I'm like, holy, and I'm thinking like, if I have to do this, what I just felt for another, however many hours I've been here, I don't think I can do this. I remember thinking that. But then because of the little bit of research that I did do, right? Because I had no preparation leading up to in my life, just the little bit of research I did during the pregnancy, I was like, wait, no, I think I'm really close. And I'm by myself, right? Like nurses aren't coming in, midwives aren't coming in. They're leaving us alone. Thank God. They're not checking up too much. And I think it's because it was moving along quite fast. And by the way, the nurse did come in at one point and said, your contractions are so out of control, intense. We have to turn the Pitocin down. I think you're in like full natural labor. I think your body's just doing its thing. I would turn it off completely, but I'm not legally allowed to.
Oh my gosh.
Is what she said. And so anyway, so I'm on all fours in that crazy contraction, and I'm thinking, okay, I think I'm close to the end. And I was. So very shortly after that, I remember grabbing the nurse by the shirt, and I was like, call the midwife. And she, of course, looked at me kind of like, all right, honey, we'll call the midwife, right? You know the story. So the midwife kind of saunters in, same one that told me 5% are my chances of having a natural birth. She saunters in. She's like, all right, like, let's have a look, and so she looks. I guess she checks for No, she doesn't check for dilation, because she looks between my legs and she's like, okay. She puts the gloves on and she's going. Like, so I guess he was like,
right
it was
there.
He was right there. And I don't recall having to push for very long, and the baby comes and everything was amazing. And by the way, the father, who I haven't told much about, I'm making these noises, these sounds as he's coming out. And they're like beautiful. Like, I feel like I'm like a wild kind of just, the sounds, but like and I've never made sounds like this. But I'm also, by the way, a theater trained actor. So we had done like all this vocal work in school, and it wasn't long after graduating school. So it's like fresh in my work. And I was like, whoa, like this is like real sounds that are like, I'm not even making this sound, right? Like my body's just doing this thing. And the father, in this kind of embarrassed tone, like grabs my hand and he's like, can you just like quiet down? He was kind of embarrassed, I think, by what I was doing. And thank God Selena was there to whisper in my ear, like, you keep doing exactly what you're doing. Everything's fine, right?
That's what women do.
Of course, that's what women do. So the baby comes, and by the way, this baby was born in the amniotic sac.
Oh,
so the water never broke. And the midwife, as he was crowning, also said, I loved this part, but she said, he's doing something really beautiful. Apparently he was like undulating his spine or his head to like massage his way out.
Cool.
That's how she was saying. And I was like, oh, like and if you knew my son, you'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like he's like, he's helping you, like, or he's helping himself. But so all this to say, and I tell that story really quick, but it was like a really positive experience. And I feel incredibly blessed because I know that Pitocin could have gone so south. And I didn't know at the time how bad it could have gone. But I learned later that how dangerous Pitocin can be to induce from cold, right? Like I wasn't in labor already.
It's often not very successful. Like when you're not at all in labor, your body's not ready. There's this arbitrary reason, like low fluid, come on, so that's beautiful. Yeah. That it worked out.
Absolutely. And I felt blessed. I did feel empowered. Like I knew that it was in part because of my state of mind and what I wanted and what I was doing. And I also think that it had to do with Selena being in the room, because I think if I was alone with the father, he would like, honestly, the entire time that I was laboring, he was watching because of course I was induced, so the baby had to be, they were monitoring the heart,
Yeah.
which is probably why they didn't come in to check on me too much. I think he was doing fine. Like the heart,
For
like
sure.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole time he was just sitting there staring at the monitor. Like that was what was important to him, which of course the baby's heart rate is important, but like,
Yeah.
yeah. So had I not been with Selena, had she not been there as this incredible rock and holding space and just doing whatever I needed, it could not have gone as well.
She was your midwife. That's authentic midwifery. Hey,
Yeah.
like that's what we want. I don't need someone to check my blood pressure. I don't care about that. I want to be witnessed, you know, and have a woman there with me holding space. That's beautiful.
So fast forward 13 years. Sorry, I'll also add to say that there was nothing wrong. She was like, I was like, so why did you guys induce me? Like, what was the matter? And she goes, no, everything was great. Baby's like, the placenta was really healthy. Everything was great. I was like, okay, well, and they were all also very shocked that the baby came in about 8 hours. And apparently the bets in the hallway, which were happening by the nurses, I was told, was not in my favor until they were like, oh, what? And then the baby was coming, right? So all of it just felt so disconnected from the care in the hospital, yeah? So 13 years later, or I guess 12 years later, I'm with a brand new, incredible human being. So I met the man I'm married to now. And I didn't like really need to have another child. I was like, I think he's waking up. But I'm glad I did because he's incredible. Should I go get you? Give me 1 second. So fast forward, I'm with this great partner. He really wants to have a child and he's like such a great man. I was like, okay, I think you should be a parent. Like people like you need to raise children. He's just so great. So we got pregnant by choice, right? So different than the first time that was, and that's an interesting thing to experience, the two opposites for me as well, like just to choose and then be able to, and we're lucky that he was conceived quite quickly. And then here now I'm like 13 years older and with a partner who is so supportive and like he just sees the whole experience as so sacred and he wants, and I'm like, by this point I'm like, I'm going to have a home birth. Like I'm not even going near a hospital. I don't need one. Don't even question it. And he's like so into it, my partner, my husband, and like enamored by the whole thing. It's just like, of course, like you tell me all about it and like let's research. The next morning after finding out that I'm pregnant, he goes online and finds a doula. He just Googles, and the first website he finds is Carissa's home body birth, and he shows it to me, and I was like, oh, it looks good on the website. Like I like what I see. She does have a great looking website, and we call her up, and she comes to meet us in person, and I was like, great. We looked no further, and I knew that I wanted a doula because I said like, the first time around having Selena was so impactful. So having her and the relationship building throughout the pregnancy with her, she was just so full of information and education and a place to soundboard. And so this time around, I don't get any of the tests, like nothing. I think I had the first ultrasound, like the
dating scan.
The dating scan, and that's it. Like I didn't. Yeah. Literally. Maybe I took the ROGAM. No, I didn't take the ROGAM, but I took that test. But anyway.
To see,
yeah. Anyways, I was like, I don't need any of it. No, thank you. Like, and I did do my due diligence and research and found what worked for me. But that was really fun to experience, like trusting. And then again, pregnancy was all easy peasy, like everything was fine. But when 37 weeks came around, for whatever reason, I was like, I think he's going to come early, like my first boy, which didn't necessarily come naturally because of the induction. But and at 37 weeks, I'm feeling all these symptoms that I hadn't felt the first time around. And as the days continue past 37 weeks, which I hadn't experienced, I'm feeling really, really minute shifts and like I was feeling my body open and I was like, I think he's coming. And like for days and days and days, I think he's coming. And he's so low in my pelvis. I think he's like right there, right? So so I'm preparing and preparing and preparing and preparing. And then something happened in our family with my son. I won't get into details on that, but it was kind of like this thing that shook up. It was kind of like a conflict that came up, and it was really heavy, and it was very like old, and it was painful. And when it happened, the next morning, baby like went straight back up. Like it's like I couldn't feel the baby anymore. Not in like there was nothing wrong. I didn't think anything was wrong, but I couldn't feel him down.
It wasn't engaged anymore.
Yeah. Okay. That's what. Yeah. And I was like, wow, he wants to nurse. And I was fascinated because I thought like, wow, he's so in tune. He's not going to come until we resolve this. He's like, all right, you guys, you got to figure this out.
Yeah. Before I arrive.
And it sounds silly to say it, but like my whole body just knew it. It was very night and day.
That sounds wise.
Yes. Wise and intuitive and caring. I felt like he was caring for us. And he was like, I'm not going to come and disrupt and like take out all of your attention until you guys, but I'm freaking out because it's only 3 weeks to my due date. And of course, when big things happen, they sometimes take time.
Yeah.
Anyways, fast forward to 2 nights after my due date, we finally have some very deep resolution about this. And it really was like on a cellular level for me, at least. It was a conversation that we had initiated. This is between me and my son, by the way, not in the family as a whole, just me. It's between me and my older son. And some beautiful, beautiful shifts inside of me and like understanding him and what I needed to change in order to resolve it. Like, sometimes you know it in your brain, but when it like happens in your body. And I just had this peace come over me. And I was like, I don't need to talk about this anymore. I'm good. Like, I think I know what to do. And we went home that night, and 11 o'clock, I could start to feel, I was like, okay, I don't know if he's coming tonight, but like I was just feeling he was dropping back down. And then 2 a.m. is when the contractions started the night of this resolution. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like he literally came when the coast was clear. And then the labor, my partner, my husband was so excited to like experience and witness really. Like, I think that's what he, and he, in his preparation, he was like, I'm just there to witness and be there and he couldn't wait. And I told him, I was like, I have a feeling it's going to be a really fast labor. And he was like, no, can you like let it last a little bit so that I could like experience it with you? And like, because I think he probably intuitively knew how elusive it is. I know when I gave birth the first time, as he was coming out, I remember thinking like, oh, I hope I get to experience this again, because it's like, you can't quite grasp what is going on, right? Like it's
very ethereal and it's a trip, right? Like you're in another realm. And like, I feel like that's the part where you're like, I want to hold this, but you can't.
But you can't.
You can't.
Yeah. Just like, yeah, exactly. So I think he kind of knew that too. So anyway, the labor, honestly, I go into, I feel the actual contractions like at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I'm on the phone with Selena, who now lives in Australia. So it's like an appropriate time there for her. And she she's just like rooting for me and excited. And she reminds me, she's like, go and do like some activity. And like, when you can't do it anymore, you're in active labor. And I'm like, okay. You know, because she always just has the right things to say. So I'm doing my thing around the house and making my noises and moving around. But like, it's pretty chill at this point and I'm really enjoying it. And then like 4 a.m., I think it starts to get a bit louder and David wakes up. I think I told him, I was like, I'm going into labor. I was like, but go to bed. This will be a while. I need you to sleep so that we can, because this will be a while. But by 4 a.m., he like jumps out of bed because he can hear me and he's like, all right, I'm ready. And yeah, and he's great. And he like really wants to get in there. He's like wants to massage me. And he's like, I'm like, no. But he like just wants to be involved. But as soon as I told him to back off, he was all over it. So he's just been great. And by 5 o'clock, I'm like, okay, this is escalating pretty fast. But I'm like, I'm not going to call Carissa until like 6 a.m. at least, right? There's no need to wake her up. That's probably at 4:30. And like by 5 o'clock, I'm like, actually, I think we need to call her right now and just have her stand by. And then by 5:30, I'm like now, like she needs to be here 5 minutes ago. Like it just, so point being is, everything did escalate fast, like I had expected. And, although on some ways I think I was in like very early labor for like 3 weeks before that.
Totally. Yeah.
Because the baby was like, I'm coming. Anyway, so I just, all of a sudden, I remember dropping to my knees at one point and being like, okay, now I'm in labor, like not, as in active labor. I was like, now I can't do anything. And I kind of had a hard time even moving from one place to another. I just needed to be on the bed. And Carissa got there 10 minutes before the baby was born.
Oh, man.
And we had the windows wide open and I'm like howling. This labor was not quiet like the first one.
Had you called midwives?
I did too. I did call the midwives right after Carissa. I didn't need them to like not be there, you know? I by the way, had like the woman who ended up coming was like my favorite on the team.
Perfect.
And I kind of wish she was there because she's so beautiful. But we just didn't call her soon enough. And it wasn't on purpose. But she shows up. I think she was in the house right as he came out. But it took her a moment to get up the stairs, so she was kind of there. But Carissa walks into, so 10 minutes before, I was like, I'm scared, baby's coming, and Carissa's not going to be here. And David told me later that he was like slightly offended because he was like, oh, babe, like we can do this, just us. But then he said, and this is, you know, back to the whole doula magic. When Carissa walked into the room, he immediately said, like realized like, oh, I can't do that. Like whatever it was, she literally on entering the room, she walked in like air with gentle, like, and she just like lay down, or she sat down beside I'm on the bed, by the way, on our bed, and my head is like on the foot of the bed, and she just crouches down beside my head, and she just looks me in the eye, and she just starts cooing at me. She's like, yeah, hi, buddy. And all she did was like say, yeah, you got this. Yeah, like that's all she did. But it was all I needed. And not that I, you know, like if she hadn't showed up, it would have been totally fine because the whole thing was just happening on its own, right? Like there wasn't that's any. It.
Babies are born with nobody there. But sometimes, like if that's what you want in your birth, there's something so beautiful about women connecting and supporting each other and witnessing each other in birth.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I wanted her there because we had developed this beautiful relationship and I wanted her part of it. Like I keep sending her pictures now because I'm like, I want you there for my whole son's life.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated like what David said about like what she had to offer. Like he doesn't have that available in him. And he's so gentle and beautiful, but like he was there for me to like push with my legs and like scream and like be like, "Guy, you got this," and like a sports coach. And And yeah, then baby came. And also another thing David said was so beautiful was, I think he had to, okay. So as baby's coming out, so a little bit of poop came out, and I'm like, David, I think I pooped, because he's down there versus at my head, and he was like, what, where, what? He's like, oh yeah, I think so. And so he's like trying to find something to wrap it with, and he turns away to put it away, and by the time he turns back, the baby's there.
Oh, wow.
Like he just kind of, like, there wasn't head and then shoulders. He's a small baby. He was 6 pounds, 5 ounces. So fair. But like, he just came out.
Yeah.
And David was a little bit sad about that too, because he wanted, I mean, I don't think nobody needed to catch him because it was on the bed, but he was like, oh, I wanted to like see the moment, and he thinks he missed it, but like, no, nobody really, like, it's all, again, like you said, so elusive and ethereal. So and by the way, you know that beautiful essay, The Holistic Stages of Birth?
Mm-hmm.
You know it, yeah?
Yeah, isn't that I was just talking to someone about this. I think it's Wapio's. Isn't it? Like,
I don't know. I have to look it up.
It's quite beautiful.
Inspirational, beautiful. And in it, there's a moment, I guess there's something in it about like David's, because I read it with David, and he said that there was like a moment where like the light changed or something. The light changes right before the baby comes, or I don't know. It's like, and he said to me that right when baby was coming out, there was a candle we had lit that was a gift from somebody we care about deeply. And apparently in mid-labor, I was like, go get that candle. Like in active labor, I like remembered the candle for some reason. And he said that the candle like flickered really clearly, like off and on, which I didn't notice, but he did. Hey, buddy. And so I'm almost at the end. So David also, after that point, when he missed that moment, he was like, I realized in that moment that to be like a good father, I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but he's like, my role for the next little while is to take care of you so that you can take, like, yes, we heard this before.
He gets it.
He totally gets it. And it came to him in that moment when he had to miss the crowning in order to put the poop away. Like, and he was just like, I missed like this thing I'd been waiting for 9 months. But he was like, it's okay, because that's what you needed in that moment.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, baby came, and then he was on my belly, and like everyone in that, I mean, again, back in the hospital, it was still fine. Like, they put the baby on me right away, and it was fine. Like, it wasn't like a horrific experience like you hear where they take the baby and they clean him off. And like, no, they kept all the vernix, you call it? Your picture froze. Are you still there? But this time was just so much better, where everyone was, and Carissa and the midwife like just sat on the, like, just waited and like let us do our thing.
Was he born on call as well, within his amniotic sac?
I don't think so, but I don't think the water broke until he was crowning.
Yeah.
So he was kept on there.
How was the birth of the placenta?
Oh, well, that was interesting because I got up and did you get that fun picture I sent you?
Yes.
Like, I was like trying to get up and like find all these positions to get it out, and I couldn't. We ended up just putting a bowl inside the toilet, and I sat on the toilet and I just came right out. Perfect. So like, it wasn't challenging or difficult. It just needed, but it was interesting to take my time and just find that. And I did think in the moment while I was trying to birth the placenta, and Carissa was guiding me through it, but very gently, like she wasn't imposing anything. She was like, yeah, just gently, like, do this or do that. Like, she was kind of just backing off. But I thought, like, if I didn't have her, I wouldn't know what to do. and I should know what to do, right? Like I should have been taught this from my mother or from just life. I should
Yeah,
have.
just think if we lived more in community, like how we all would have been at births already, like of all of our siblings and our cousins and our friends' births of their babies. And then you would know that wisdom would belong within all of us, but we don't see it.
Exactly.
The first birth you're going to is yours. And if you're having a hospital birth, the placenta, or even with midwives at home, often it's very managed.
Yeah.
Like I don't even remember really what happened in my hospital birth, you know? Like I know what I know what they did because I know what they do in hospitals,
Right.
but I don't have personal memory of it because it was just done for me.
Yeah. I didn't know, of course, they put the Pitocin in my thigh for the first birth, but I didn't notice it. Nobody asked me. Nobody told me. I don't remember it. I know the placenta came out right away, so it had to have been
and
that
they
way.
pull it out. Yeah. And then, yeah.
Yeah. And, so I remember having that thought, like, thank God Carissa's here. What would I do? I'd be sitting here with a placenta. Like, like what would I do? Yeah, buddy. And, and the whole experience after of finally deciding when I was ready to go into the shower, which was the first time I handed baby to David. And I actually, he just backed off and let me hold baby, and he didn't even ask until it just happened organically, which I thought was really beautiful. Even though I'm sure he wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in there cuddling, but yeah. So that's my story. I mean, I could keep talking forever, but like I don't know why I feel so lucky. Oh, are you hearing that?
Yeah.
That's poop.
I love like little breastfed baby poop is so aggressive.
I feel really fortunate that my births have been so beautiful, and I mean all births are beautiful, but I just mean that I came upon this sort of natural birthing without having known about it. Does that make sense? Like without
you didn't
having
have to,
and I didn't. I think I knew a little bit then because of watching that Ricky Lake documentary, but I didn't realize that was like almost a threat. Like it feels to me like now it's a threat, and I just feel really grateful that that it happened that way, or that I didn't have to experience. Because I've listened to your podcast for pretty much every episode, and like some women find it through some trauma and some like hard.
I feel like there's often a first birth that like shakes you, and then you, out of necessity, find something else. Yeah. Did I ask you, how was your postpartum?
Oh, great question. Oh, I'm going to move the mic up. That those two scenarios were very different from first to second birth. Being in the hospital, like postpartum here at home was so nurturing and slow, and I mean, Carissa stayed until I needed to that day, but then mostly it was David. My mom came, Carissa came to help a little bit, and then I was trying to think back, like, I was in the hospital for 3 days. I had to be in the hospital, not in my own space, dealing with everything I'm dealing with now, which is not that much, right? Like, but still, I mean, not that much in comparison to, say, if you're having, I don't know, to heal from cesarean or just pretty mellow recovery. But yeah, I think the first one is kind of blocked out of my memory in a way. I'm almost like, what was going on then? And I didn't have a support, like the partner who was supportive in the same way that David is. And so I think maybe that's why some of it's blocked out of my memory. But this time around, I had pre-cooked myself like 40 meals myself, the family. cooked everybody 4 meals. So we had like my home cooked food at easy access for like a month after.
So good.
Which was the smartest thing. I recommend that. We have a big freezer though, so not everybody has that luxury. But so I had like we cooked bone broth and just like sauces and soups and meat dishes and I did read that like 40 days book.
Yep.
And again, hadn't known about that before, but just made sure. I was like, I think I want those 40 days.
Yeah.
To stay in, to eat, to be with my baby. And I was able to do that. So I would say like the healing, my body healing happened quickly. And I think a lot thanks to that, right? I also encapsulated the placenta by Monarch Mothering. Is that the name?
Yes, she did mine as well.
Did she?
She's lovely.
She's amazing. And
she's going to come chat on the podcast too about
of course she is.
All of her expertise. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's...
How did you find your encapsulated placenta? Do you think it was like helpful? Could you tell, or like what are your thoughts on it?
Bless David. He was like, no, we should just cut it up and freeze it and put it in smoothies. Like, like he's just all about. And I was like, okay, that's great. I love it. But I think that was almost a little too much for me. So so she told us about Monarch Mothering, and so we encapsulated them. I mean, I felt amazing after. Of course, there was that dip a few days after, but for the most part, like my strength was like slowly but steadily increasing. My body was healing fast. So I don't know if it was partly due to that, because I don't remember. I think it was pretty similar the first time around. But I was grateful to have them, and I loved taking them. So it's not like I could tell a huge difference, because I didn't know how to like how can you compare it, right?
Right. That's why it's like it's so subjective. Like, and you can't like have the same pregnancy again and not take them. Like next time it'll be different again if you have another, you know. Yeah.
But I mean, however it I was vegan before I had the first baby. And I don't know that I was the healthiest vegan in the sense, not that I was just like really I was probably underweight, and I don't know. But again, I was younger, so maybe just like younger, stronger type thing. And I don't remember having a hard recovery or anything. But the second, like now I eat all the things. And honestly, I don't feel like one way or the other was better or worse for me. Both. Oh, but I wasn't vegan during my first pregnancy. I was vegan prior to it. And as soon as I became pregnant, my craving for meat was so clear. I wasn't going to deny it at all.
How long were you vegan for before the first baby?
Maybe 4 years.
Oh yeah, it's a good amount of time.
Yeah, a good amount of time. I wouldn't do that again, but I did then.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as I became pregnant, I was like, I'm eating meat. Like it was unquestionable. Like it was just so clear in my body that I needed to. And I gained a little bit more weight in the first pregnancy, possibly in part to do with the fact that I was a little underweight, and I was like, my body was like just needed. So it was so foreign to put, like, I just needed that weight.
Yes.
Whereas the second time around, it was pretty mellow and came off easy. And like, do you know what I mean? Like it was just, I have the tincture, so I'm looking forward to seeing if it helps, because she said that it can help with like menopause symptoms down the road.
Yes.
I did get my menstrual cycle back after 3 months, which I think is early, right?
That's generally, yeah. They said it generally like it's considered.
I think it's like early but normal.
Yeah, I mean, like the range of normal is so broad. It's not like it's not normal, but they would generally tell you that you have about 6 months where you could consider of breastfeeding if you're exclusively breastfeeding. And they say if your baby isn't waking up, I think not giving you more than 4-hour stretches, it might be 6 hour. I think it's 4-hour stretches. Then you could consider that safe for birth control for 6 months. right? So you shouldn't expect your cycle back. And then after that, it's like a big range of normal. Like I think for my last 2 babies, it was like 18 months that I went without a cycle. Yeah, but it's such like, you just don't know.
You're
right?
like always like, when is it coming? Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Well, I did notice that when it came, and this also happened with my first one though, and I didn't take the placenta. I didn't consume the placenta with the first pregnancy. But I noticed that after my first like few years back of menstrual cycles after the birth were symptomless. Like, I don't know if that's the thing, but like no cramping, no bloating, no, like, I'm not noticing any mood stuff. So this menstrual cycle, the first one that came, was kind of like, oh, what?
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, birth is such a healer. And it's known for like a lot of like, you know, women's issues, that giving birth, pregnancy and birth can heal those things, and nobody knows why. And I wonder, is it like a physiologic thing? Or I'm sort of like, I don't know if you're familiar with German new medicine, but I find it very fascinating. And it's sort of about how your psyche, your brain and your psyche manages your physiology. And so I think if you think of it from that respect, how entering that rite of passage of motherhood, as we do like each time we give birth, we like initiate into it again. And perhaps that's healing, you know, to our physiology.
That's what my intuition told me the first time. I felt like my body had been through some healing.
Yeah, like even generational pieces and healing whatever your maiden story was that wasn't quite complete, right? And then you come into motherhood, and especially if you can do it without abuse, right, in the system, if you can do it that way, even better, even more healing.
I had a beautiful healing session with a healer. I mean, I don't even know what kind of healing she does, but she kind of, when I was about 37 weeks, close to the time that conflict had happened. But anyways, I had this session with her, and during it, you kind of go into this, similar to first birthing experience it was telling you about, when you go into that cave, like that silent kind of internal space. But during that time, I was in the fetal position on that same bed, actually, for most of the hour and a half healing session, in the fetal position. And I very much was like in utero in my mind. I don't know what was happening. I know that a lot of forgiveness was kind of taking place. I don't even know for what. And it was like moving through fetal position. And it was right after Carissa had shown me the birth atlas. Do you know about her beautiful birth atlas?
No.
She it's a very big, and she shows you pictures of like each stage of what's happening in the womb as you're in labor.
Cool.
So she showed that to us. And by the way, like, I mean, that on its own, when in labor, is so empowering to know, or to visualize, and to know what's happening inside as you're experiencing those sensations, which is probably missing from
totally
just the pre-delivery care, and just how you're preparing yourself. Like, it was very helpful.
Yeah, we tend to think of prenatal care as like our blood pressure and our getting our, you know, blood tests and ultrasounds, but no, there's
none
much
of that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, and it doesn't support you, and it doesn't so that was one thing that Carissa, like, I just remembered. Anyways, in that healing session, I was like in that womb, and I was like, oh, like, I just remembering the positions, and it was weird.
Oh,
and
so
baby was doing somersaults.
Yeah, they have a whole series of movements.
And I think the reason, like, I'm here talking to you, I'm so fascinated with my own births, or my baby's births, and the process, and how, when I want to talk about it with women outside of people like you and Carissa, I kind of tend to keep my mouth quiet, because
Yes.
it seems to me, this is just my experience, but it seems to me like a lot of women who have had, some women, I should say, have come across who have had some more traumatic experiences kind of don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Or if people would say, oh, are you going to have like a hospital birth? Or they would ask me and I would say, oh, I'm definitely going to have a home birth. They're like, oh, please be careful. And kind of that, I know it's a cliche response, but I don't get to tell my story that often.
I know there's a sort of a thing in our culture where you're supposed to say it was awful. And I mean, I think it was for a lot of people, but that's sort of the story you tell. It was painful. It was awful. Everybody almost died. That's the story everybody likes to tell. And I don't think they think in their mind, like, I like to tell this story, but it is the story of our society of birth within the system that's been created. And it's the story that's passed down to women without another narrative coming there. And I think when that's been your experience and that's the story you've told over and over and the story you heard before that, to have a woman come in and be like, it was amazing. It was empowering. I learned everything about myself. I met my baby there. That's, it doesn't have a place. It doesn't fit that narrative. But
and I'm so curious why. I mean, I think I have an idea of why, but I just want to continue to explore that. And I don't even think I'm going to have more babies. I would if I was younger and if I had met David sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I would have so many babies.
Yeah.
Partly to have the babies and partly to experience
totally
that space that you cannot. And so I don't know, I just feel really passionate that there's, in the way that we as a culture are educating young girls about it and how, exactly what you're talking about, like it's in the psyche to expect it to be bad and expect. So I'm almost grateful, when I said at the beginning that I didn't have any experience with birth and there was no stories being told, like I just had no idea about it. I'm sort of glad. I felt like it was a clean slate.
Yeah, that's definitely better.
But I am endlessly curious, which is why I wanted to be here and experience sharing my story like this. And also, I'm kind of exploring for myself. I think I mentioned when I met you in that birth circle that I'm dabbling and exploring with writing a one-woman show about it. I don't quite know how it's going to pan out, but I'm just curious to investigate further, like why so many women don't get to have this experience, because it's not like a bragging right. Like I'm not like, I actually just want more women to experience this. And it makes me really sad and kind of angry sometimes when I hear stories that I'm like, oh, well, that was the first thing that, like, okay. And I'm not an expert, and I like I'm not like you ladies with your so much experience and education around this. I just gave birth to it 2 times, but
that's the ticket. Do
right.
it, feel it, right?
But sometimes when I hear certain women, I'm like, oh my gosh, you went and you did what? Like you said yes to that. Like of course it was going to go downhill. Like,
yeah.
But they don't know.
No, we don't. And we trust the external sources, right? Like, just like when they were like, your fluid's low, you better go get induced. And you're like,
and in that scenario, I didn't trust, but I didn't have,
I guess it's like, we feel pressured.
Yeah. I didn't have the self-confidence, the wisdom passed down from other women. I didn't have anything to grasp onto. And I didn't yet, now I am much more wary of the medical establishment. I think I kind of was at the time, but mostly I just didn't engage with it.
Yeah.
Whereas now I very purposely don't engage with it too much. So yeah, I didn't have the confidence to stand up, but I knew in every part of my body that no induction was needed. That I just needed to go home and ignore him.
I think that's part of what makes birth feel traumatic for women sometimes, is when they have that deep knowing and then they go anyway, or they're like pressured anyway into taking the intervention, and it just silences that voice that is your mother voice. That's the voice that protects your children and tells you, and like the more she's nurtured, the more you can hear it. But when you have that deep knowing, they're like, no, you don't know anything. You got to go in and get this thing.
Absolutely.
That turns into trauma for women often.
Yeah. And I kind of want to somehow, even if just to one person or just a little seed of just to plant seeds, to plant those seeds in the zeitgeist. Because it's not just, it's for the women, it's for the children, it's for society, like more men like David, I think, who want to encourage that and to support that. And that only comes from knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Given back, not even new knowledge, just given back knowledge.
Oh, this has always belonged to us, this knowledge. We're reclaiming it.
Yeah.
Bringing it back. Well, if people want to, is there a space people can follow you if they want to keep up on, your one-woman show to come?
Absolutely. So I'm an actor, like I mentioned. So I just have your generic Instagram page. It's carmel.amit. I also have our coaching and teaching acting business called Garage Tapes, which you can, so that's garage _tapes_ on Instagram. So any info on the show will be there, but that's a long times away. I think I need a lot of research and a lot of time to write that.
To gestate that one.
Yeah. It's just a seed at this point.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. New episodes are released every Tuesday. You can submit your story through the link in the show notes or connect with us on Instagram, link in the show notes as well. Follow, subscribe, share, write us a fabulous review. These are all great ways to be part of the movement toward more powerful and peaceful births. Until next time.